Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Paper Tiger. If you're new here, my name is Steven, and today, boys, I'm coming clean because not every project that I have ever started has come out well. In fact, several of them have just completely, utterly flopped. So often on YouTube, it can seem like everything is clean and shiny and everything goes according to plan, which is very, very not the case. And I wanted to show you guys that, yeah, I managed to do things, but it's not like it always goes according to plan. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I am going to confess to you guys a few of the projects that have just completely and utterly failed. Starting with this. Some of you guys may have seen this weird looking scooter that was sitting in the background in some of my shots from videos last year. So the story behind it is, one day I came home and it was just there, and I was told that my neighbors had just given it to me. So my neighbors had gotten it from a friend who had broken it and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't running, so he gave it to them for free to see if they could fix it. So he and his dad messed with it for a while, got bored after making very little progress, and decided to let me take a crack at it. And I was like, sure. Let's do it. Free scooter? Say no more. However, none of us knew exactly why it wasn't running, and I had never worked on a scooter like this. It was a 2008-ish Chinese Velocity scooter. The scooter was powered by a 50cc GY6 single-cylinder engine, which is actually a really, really simple engine that's on a ton of scooters and different vehicles. They even put some in quads, like the Chinese quads. Like the real cheap ones. Anyway, I'd never worked on one before, and whenever I first looked at it, it looked a little bit daunting, but there was a lot of good information online about it, so I decided, what the heck, how hard could it be? And the scooter itself, it was dope, dude. It was decked out with some Penn State stickers, which I thought looked pretty sick, and somebody put underglow on it, which probably didn't look that great, but I just loved the idea of a scooter with underglow. I thought that is the coolest thing ever, and I need to get this thing working. Unfortunately, though, fate had other plans. My neighbors were under the impression that the engine had jumped timing, so I reset the timing again. Still wouldn't start, so I checked the valves, we had fuel, we had spark, and we had compression, so we couldn't figure out why it wasn't running. This included my friend David, who is usually extremely good at solving problems like this, and Tommy, who can usually redneck himself out of any situation. None of us could figure out why it wasn't working. The closest that we got is we did get it to sputter one time, but it never fully started, and that was the closest that we ever got. I do want to mention that we never properly tested for compression. We did not have a compression gauge at our disposal, and we kind of just held our hands over the exhaust and felt it pushing out air and said, okay, it's got compression, it's good. Eventually, after investing a good amount of money into parts into it and not getting anywhere, I decided, you know what, I think I see the writing on the wall, and I threw in the towel. Plus, the scooter was taking up room in my garage that I wanted to use for other projects. So I listed it for sale on Marketplace for like $100. Some guy came and bought it. And here's a fun fact. Turns out, these style scooters will in fact fit in the back of a Dodge Caravan. Just wanted to put that out there in case anybody else needs to know that. Now, you would think this is where the story ends for me, but sort of not. The bike actually went back up for sale on Marketplace about 3 months later, and the guy who bought it from me had fixed it. The description, if I remember correctly, says that he put a new top end on it, which makes me wonder if I had properly tested for compression, probably would have seen something out of the ordinary, and maybe I wouldn't have written this project off as a loss. As of the filming of this video, the scooter is still for sale on Marketplace. I will leave a link in the description of this video to it in case one of you guys wants to buy it, because that would be funny. Alright, on to the second failed project, which was far more ambitious. This also starts with a free object. As I mentioned in the full collection video, I got this Murray go-kart frame for free off of my friend Aaron, because at the time, we were considering swapping a street bike motor onto it, C-Boys TV style. And while we just loosely used the term street bike engine, the actual debate for what engine to put in it was very much up for debate. But for me, it eventually just came down to convenience. I wanted something that was high CC, cheap, and close by. So whenever a 1982 Yamaha Virago, which was cheap and 750 cc's, I jumped at the chance. The guy selling it even cut me a huge discount just because he wanted it out of his way. It seemed like all the stars had aligned until I got it home. For one, I looked at the Murray frame and I looked at the bike and I realized that the engine was probably not going to fit without massive changes to the frame. It was going to be a huge project and by extension, ludicrously expensive. And then second off, and much more embarrassing, is that these bikes were shaft driven and the go-kart was chain driven, meaning that even if I wanted it to work, it wasn't gonna work. As you guys will see in a later video, I later got a different, more properly sized engine for the go-kart, and we've been working on it off and on ever since then. But in the meantime, I was now stuck with a completely useless motorcycle from 1982 that didn't have any wheels. A lesser person probably would have just scrapped it, but I elected not to. And in doing so, I learned a couple of important lessons. Number one, don't buy a motorcycle without wheels. It sucks to move. Second, when you're trying to sell something, find the right buyer. I found a guy about an hour from me who specialized in parting out motorcycles. I emailed him to see if he would be interested in it. He was, and I ended up selling the bike for 3 times what I originally paid for it, which I was pretty proud of. I still am. I managed to turn a situation that was incredibly stupid and embarrassing and turn it to my benefit, I guess. Benefit? Is that the right word? Yeah, sure. It is now, alright? This is my show. I'm gonna do what I want. Anyway, the takeaway here is that everything has value to someone, you just need to find them. And also, the bike serves one other important purpose. Whenever my friends who have motorcycles beg me to buy a bike, I can just look at them and be like, bruh, I already did! I'm looking at you, Aaron. Hi, buddy. And there are plenty of other vehicles that I've owned throughout the years that could be classified as failures. Drift Trike, for example, which wasn't actually good at drifting, or the Weed Whacker scooter, which barely even moved. Even the 79cc swapped Razor bike, which just never worked very well, even though we put tons of hours into most of these projects, except for the scooter. It is also entirely possible that some of the projects that I own right now will result in failure. There's really no guarantee whenever you're doing something like this. In fact, it's kind of a risk. But I wanted to end this video with a moral. If you want to do literally anything, you can't be afraid to fail first. It's really sad that some people don't want to take risks or challenge themselves to try something new because they're afraid to fail. As you guys just saw, I have failed multiple times on these sorts of projects, but it's not always a bad thing. You learn from them, you make memories, and then you're able to move forward stronger because of them. In failing on these couple projects that I mentioned, I've been able to make my other projects and choices stronger in the future because of them. I could even make the argument that failure has played a huge part in my journey as someone who builds stuff and as someone who makes videos, because not all of my videos have worked either. Mainly, I wanted to show you guys that even though I spend a lot of time making stuff look good for a video or try and get stuff to work very well, I'm not a master at this stuff and I never claimed to be. And by extension, you guys don't have to be either. So I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to fail. And when you do, pick yourself back up, go out there, build some cool stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.